Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be doing a product review of Vvivid's V2 Pro heat transfer vinyl. This is the package that it came in. Again, this is by the brand Vvivid, VID, excuse me. They're out of Canada, and this is they make different types of vinyl wrap to include automotive vinyl wrap, architectural vinyl wrap, as well as craft and heat transfer vinyl as well. And so we'll be reviewing this heat transfer vinyl. I just have it in white. This is a 1 foot by 15 foot roll. So again, this is the package that it came in. So when I open it up, it comes in a standard plastic box here. Comes with a cover sheet, which also has instructions on the inside as well on how to use the vinyl, but also when you open up and unroll this, you'll notice this shiny side here is the carrier sheet, which you could iron or press directly on top of to apply your graphic. But on the inside, they actually have a plastic, almost like a saran wrap-like material that also has some additional instructions in it in here. So basically, it tells you to, before you cut or place or try to iron the vinyl, you'll want to definitely peel off this protective plastic which covers the adhesive side. So I'm going to try to peel that off here right now. This adhesive side here. The adhesive is semi-shiny. Some other heat transfer vinyls, if you've used them before, is more of a matte color on the adhesive side. Not that it necessarily matters, but so make sure you don't confuse that with the carrier sheet side. However, because you have this plastic sheeting here, it's unlikely that you'll mix that up. So that's one really nice thing about this. As far as the way it feels, I mean, aside from this, it feels basically like any other heat transfer vinyl, like Siser, like Cricut, anything else that you might have or use. So this is the vinyl when you get it, and to use, again, this is their V2 Pro. I do know that at least on their website, Vvivid has other types of vinyls. They have a heavy duty series, they have a premium plus series, and then again, this is in their V2 Pro series, which I believe is their highest end. Alright guys, moving on to the next section of the video for how does this cut on your cutting machine, which I will be using a Silhouette Cameo 3 with designs used in Designer Studio for Silhouette Cameos. Alright guys, so I've got my design that I'm going to cut on this Vvivid heat transfer vinyl. Again, this is the V2 Pro material, heat transfer vinyl in white. So here's my design. I'm just using Silhouette Design Studio. I've got Designer Edition. I'm making a fairly basic design with some fancier looking letters here, but I did try to put some, you can see here, some thinner, smaller parts to test a couple things. One will be a durability thing. See how long those thin little pieces can last through once I press it onto a shirt, and go through a couple washes and drying cycles to see how those thin pieces hold on. But also to see how it would cut and how it would weed as far as that goes, because when you start getting the smaller things like little slivers here, for example, when you, in some cases, if the vinyl is not great at weeding, when you pull it, it'll pull those small pieces with it, versus just pulling around something small like that. So off camera, I did a couple tests to check my blade settings and pressure settings to see what might cut best, and I did find that on the standard heat transfer vinyl smooth setting that comes automatically with Designer Edition, or excuse me, yeah, Silhouette Studio Designer Edition, works just fine. So I've got my image ready. I'm gonna go hit send, bring it up there, or bring it up. I'm just gonna select. I'm gonna be using just outer edge cut there. Heat transfer smooth, as you can see here, with settings of a depth of 2, a force is going to be 4, and then speed's going to be 8. And these, if you aren't familiar with this particular program, go from a scale of 1 to 10, or at least the speed does. the force, I believe, actually goes higher than that, and I'm just going to be doing one pass here. Alright, so before I send that, I'm going to go ahead and load up my cutting machine. So as you can see here, I've already got this loaded up, but before you actually send it to cut, peel off that protective plastic layer there and save it, and I'll tell you why a little bit later. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get it loaded up into my machine. And I'm just using have it mounted to a cutting mat. And load. Get that on there. Alright, so back to the computer. Alright, now go ahead and I'm going to hit send, but remember, because this is heat transfer vinyl, you do want to send it as mirrored so it cuts backwards. Again, because you're cutting on the adhesive side, and then when you put it down, you're basically flipping over, putting it onto the material you're going to be pressing or ironing it onto, and putting it that way. So if you cut it as regular, when you do that, it will be backwards. So I'm going to send it as mirrored. Alright. I'm going to go let the machine do its thing here. So this is a Silhouette Cameo 3, for those of you that aren't familiar with it. I'm using the auto blade settings, and so what the machine was doing there when it was clicking that white blade was actually setting the blade depth. Now you can see that it's going and cutting fairly quickly here. This isn't an overly intricate design, so it should cut fairly fast. Okay, in this part of the video, I'll be demonstrating weeding the Vvivid's V2 Pro line after I've finished cutting out the design, which was in the previous part of the video. So I like to use just an X-Acto knife as my poker. I like it because it's got a nice sharp tip that I can grab the vinyl and lift it up with, but also I can use and cut. Now, because this is an X-Acto knife, if you ever use one, you know it's very sharp, razor sharp. So be very careful and take appropriate precautions and be careful when using it. So I'm going to go ahead and just poke at a tip here on the corner, and I like to poke and I twist, that way I can grab it and pull it up enough to get it off the carrier sheet. Alright, and so it's pulling pretty easily. It's got a little bit of resistance to it. Let's see, take the knife and cut this here. I like to cut it into sections so it's a little bit easier for me to pull and doesn't have so much material all at one time pulling. Okay, so it's pulling apart. As I pull, it's not ripping, as you can see. It's pulling off nice and cleanly. Break that apart there. It is, since it is heat transfer vinyl, it is elastic, like a tough elastic here. You do want it to be stretchy since you're going to be putting it on typically clothing or things or cloth that need to be able to move with it, so it's not rigid. Let's see, continue peeling this off here. So I can see that when I peeled it off, you saw in the camera there, it kind of peeled a little bit fast and left the nice thin sliver there. So it cut one. It tells me that it cut all the way through. And again, I just used the standard heat transfer vinyl smooth settings on my Silhouette Cameo 3. Again, I was using Designer Studio. Excuse me, Silhouette Studio Designer Edition. Alright, so continuing to peel or weed the vinyl out. It does pull off, as I know this is going to be a subjective assessment here, but as I'm pulling, it does have a little bit of resistance as I'm pulling. It's not just peeling right off and really easily. The carrier sheet is a little tacky, a little sticky, but it's not super sticky, unlike some other brands that I've used before of heat transfer vinyl, where it's actually pretty sticky. And so in those brands, it's so sticky that I prefer to take out things like in the center of letters and such before peeling off the remaining large amounts of vinyl, exposing a lot of carrier sheet all at one time. So So I'm just peeling this away, It does peel fairly easily. It does have a decent amount of resistance. I know it's hard for you to tell. I don't have any kind of like meter that shows that I'm using, 2 pounds of force to pull the vinyl. But as you can see, it is weeding fairly easily. It's not pulling up any of the smaller parts here, the small thin parts of the vinyl that were cut in this part of the design. Does have a little bit of resistance as I'm pulling it, but nothing too major. Get rid of some of this excess here. Throw it away. Peel that off. All right. So that was just the major pulling part of it, if you will. Now for the more intricate one. Now I don't have any super intricate designs on this one, so maybe I'll have to do another video that shows how easily or not this weeds very small pieces. But as you can see, it's weeding pretty easily here. So I'm just poking and twisting it to lift it up. Poke and twist. Again, I'm using an X-Acto knife. That's just my preferred. If you use some sort of poker or a hook tool, please use whatever you are comfortable with. Again, I like this because it works well for me, and I can also use the bleed part as I need to, as you saw me doing when I was pulling the bigger amount of vinyl off. At one time I can cut it into smaller sections pretty easily without having to grab a separate tool. Alright, so as far as weeding goes, this is pretty darn easy, guys. I'm able to poke this up pretty easily, and it does feel a little bit thicker than other brands, say like Siser, where a lot of times where I'll pull up on a Siser and my blade will actually break through, will break it as I'm pulling up on this one. This seems to have be a little bit more resilient, if you will. So peeling this up, getting it started. Almost done. You can see that it's weeding very nicely. Again, this is not overly intricate. The pieces that I'm weeding are pretty good size. So again, I'll have to do a different video showing weeding with more intricate designs and then do a comparison. Alright, so I believe I got everything. So you'll know by flipping it back over to see if you got everything. So it looks like it did. Alright guys, so in this particular demonstration, as far as weeding goes, it seems to me that it is very easy to weed. As far as resistance and pulling up the vinyl from the carrier sheet, there is a decent amount of resistance, but it's nothing that makes the actual weeding process that I felt very difficult at all. So in the other part of the video, I had said to save this plastic sheet here that was on the adhesive side. And the reason I said save it is because if you're like me, sometimes you're working in a project and then you get called away, and so you don't want to necessarily leave your work out and exposed, especially if you have kids around that might get into this, or let's say there's a dusty area. I did find a part right here that I missed. So anyway, back to what I was saying. And this does have a little bit of tackiness to it, but say you can't get to the heat press or your iron right away, but you want to protect the adhesive side from getting anything on there. What you can do is take this sheet and just, it doesn't have to be exact because you're just trying to protect the part that you're going to actually apply, and just put it on. So now you still have your design ready to go. The adhesive side is protected now. And again, when you're ready to actually do it, you just peel this off. Always remember though, peel that off before you actually apply it. So that's kind of a neat thing that I like about this, that that it comes with this protective plastic sheet. Alright guys, so next part of the video will be pressing this onto, I'll be pressing it onto a t-shirt, and then seeing how the carrier sheet peels off. This does say cold peel, meaning after you've pressed it, let it cool off, and that was what was on the instructions, the instruction sheet that came with it. But I also did notice as I unrolled this main roll a little bit more on this plastic, it says here, before use, remove protective liner, heat press 300 to 320 with medium pressure. This film can be removed hot or cold. And then there's the other part that I read earlier. 45 degrees blades work best, heat for 7 to 15 seconds. So what I might try doing is peeling half of it while it's hot, and then cutting that piece off, and then letting the rest of it cool down, and then peeling off the rest of that so we can see how it worked. Alright guys, now it's time to press the vinyl onto the shirt. As you can see, I've got it on my heat press. This heat press that I'm using today, or that I'm using, is a Heat Press Nation Black Series 15 by 15 clamshell type. I've already got the temperature set to 320 degrees Fahrenheit. The instruction sheet that came with this Vvivid vinyl, heat transfer vinyl, says to use 320 degrees to 338 degrees for 15 seconds, and then peel after the film has cooled down. So I've got my temperature set to 320 right now. Go ahead and I've got a timer set for 15 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and close the clamshell part. Got my timer going on right now. 10, 5, 3, 2, 1. So that's 15 seconds. Pop this bad boy up. Alright, I'm going to let it cool down. Actually, no, what I'm going to do is peel off part of it while it's hot to see if it'll hot peel, and then peel off the rest once it's cold. Alright guys, so just like in the last part, I said I was going to see how this would peel hot. So I just put it on here. It's still pretty warm. So I'm peeling it while it's still warm. Seems to be peeling pretty okay. It's a little bit tight on there still, so I'm a little worried that it's going to pull off the vinyl. Like it might not have set all the way. So, as compared to say like Siser, this does not peel off very easily from what I can tell right now while it is hot. So, and it did cool off pretty quickly now. I've only had it off the heat press for about maybe 20 seconds or so. Alright, now I've got half of it peeled off. Does it feel like it's on pretty well? Actually, yes it does. I'm trying to pick off at some of the small thin areas here, and it feels like it's set on pretty well. So I'm going to let the rest of it cool off, and then finish peeling off the rest of the carrier sheet. Alright guys, so I've given it another minute or two to cool off here. So I'll finish peeling off the rest of this. It's cool to the touch, feels room temperature, not cold by any means, but just go ahead and peel this off. So it's still a little bit resistant in peeling, and it kind of worries me a little bit. It looks like it might peel off with the carrier sheet, like it might not be set, but from this first half where I peeled it, where it was still fairly warm, it was kind of the same. May have to do another test and peel it right away, right off the press, because by the time I did this first part here, it had been off for about 20-ish or few seconds, enough time for me to put this on here and set the tripod back up, or put my camera up on the area that it's viewing from right now. So continue to peel off here. Even though it is a little bit resistant in peeling off, everything seems to be set and staying in place. Peel off the rest of that. Alright, so how is it looking? Looks like everything did stick pretty good, or it stuck well. I'm trying to pick off at these small sharp points and corners and these very thin pieces here, and I'm not really getting anything. So it really feels like that it's sealed down into the shirt and bonded with the shirt really nice and tightly. Alright guys, so in this part of the video I wanted to redo the peeling of the carrier sheet from a hot peel. In the previous part where I did a hot peel, there was a little bit of gap time between taking the shirt off of the heat press and then putting it onto my table or my countertop there and then setting up my tripod. It was only about maybe 30 seconds or so, but it might have been enough to cool it a little bit, where as I was trying to peel it, it was acting almost like a cold peel. So in this part of the video, what I'm going to do is do a true hot peel. So I've got my shirt set up with a different shirt set up now with a graphic cutout in the Vvivid V2 Pro. I'm going to clamp it down on my heat press here in just a moment, and then as soon as it's done, just peel it right there on the heat press itself. All right, go ahead and get started. Temperature is set for 320 and timer is set for 20 seconds. I'm just going to let it go for a full 20 seconds. All right, pop this up. Okay, now being very careful so I don't touch my heat plate there. And for hot peel, it's looking like it peels off actually quite easily. So I would almost say that for hot peel, this peels off almost like Siser does. So it did have a little bit more resistance than Siser does. Siser peels off really easily. You saw there was a little bit of resistance as I was peeling that off there, but you can't hot peel it. The reason I did that is because although the instruction sheet that's wrapped around the tube of vinyl or roll of vinyl in the tube says cold peel, on the plastic liner itself it says cold or hot peel. So I wanted to retest that hot peel. So definitely a hot peel. It looks like you can do it, and it looks like it is a lot easier than doing a cold peel. A lot less resistance in doing so. Alright guys, so that's that part as far as redoing the hot peel test for this vinyl. Alright guys, so that's the review of Vvivid's V2 Pro heat transfer vinyl series. As you saw in the video, went over what you get in the packaging, that it has a unique adhesive protecting layer on it with as well as instructions on there, in addition to the cover sheet that comes wrapped with the roll. So if you lose that cover sheet, you still have the directions to do it. Demonstrated how it cuts on at least my Silhouette Cameo 3, where I discovered that simply using the default settings for heat transfer vinyl smooth cut it just fine. That's exactly what I use when I cut other heat transfer vinyls like Siser, for example. And it cuts just fine. As far as weeding goes, you saw in the video that it weeds pretty easily. I know this is a little bit subjective, but it felt like maybe a little bit more resistance as far as pulling the vinyl from the carrier sheet when you're weeding as compared to, say, Siser. But probably, I'd say it's very much on par as far as pulling it off, and as far as ease of weeding, as you saw in the video, it was pretty easy. As far as pressing it, once you've got it lined up how you want it, just as simple. It gives you the directions of a temperature range of 320 to I think 338 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 to 20 seconds. I just did a standard press at 320 for 20 seconds. Turned out just fine. You saw that it can cold peel as well as hot peel, and it bonds really well, to include even these small thin parts here, which when weeding with lesser vinyls or vinyls that aren't quite as good, what we would pull these small pieces off, as far as, and also pressing them on, that these small pieces, which if you think about it, have very little adhesive behind it, very little surface area, so very little adhesive, is bonded to the shirt just as well. So I hope that you found this video to be helpful and informative, and if you did, please give a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Thanks guys.